Testing. Test. Okay. So we last left off talking about programs. We were talking about the AO. We were talking about deck protocol. We were talking about the cards. So this would be a meta org or Portal Mountain themed or templated deck protocol. So in other words, the latest iterations of our research is so I was last time inside just recording from my work overlooking a road, and now I'm back outside on the balcony, so I'm just hoping to pick up where I left off. I think I've added another hour, I think, maybe, I don't know. Anyways, I have now changed locations. I'm sitting down. Normally I would be standing or pacing. I may get to that. It kind of helps me think, I think, or helps me to keep my flow going better. So I want to make this a great writing piece. I want to get in here a lot of different themes. I want to touch a lot of different points in this strike point of the bootstrapping, of the domain of bootstrapping itself. Bootstrapping the bootstrap. And so I've described a number of many what I might call sub strike points. Just thinking about this, how it works to iterate a field of meaning, a fractal of meaning. The first case might be, say, okay, this is my strike point. My strike point is the bootstrap of bootstrapping the bootstrapper. So immediately I start to do that, or one begins to iterate around the fractal, beginning to iterate the domain within a selected domain. So you are connecting whatever areas that you'd like together in order that the recipient of the media expression might be given enough context to trigger an arc of meaning. So this is the lightning strike of the strike point protocol. Hey.
You sound like a bumblebee.
Oh. Thanks. I'll keep buzzing then. So the strike point protocol is like a bolt of lightning through a domain, spreading out, going in many directions, forking, and we're just iterating this web of meaning. So when we strike point the bootstrapping the bootstrapper, we immediately go to something else, which may in turn go to something else, or maybe start to describe the bootstrapper from its perspective. So there are so many different angles or aspects or areas of the fractal that one can get into. When I say bootstrapping the bootstrapper, that should hopefully give an idea of how at the core or the kernel of this operating system that we are speaking here. I've laid out a number of protocols. Already in this series, I continue to do so using the dictate protocol, as I have been for this time. Once I have enough dictated materials and I can't think of anything else that I would rather talk about, once I completely have exhausted or well exhausted the potential of this strike point at this point in time, then I will move on to other methods, such as the graphing and charting, as I was saying earlier, creating visual representations of the web of meaning, or the fractal of meaning, which I have iterated to give both a timeless view as well as a history of the discussion of topics, generally speaking, if possible, to get approximations. So when I have that map also, I should be able to more easily visualize any areas of this which I have not gone into enough detail, and from there I will use any materials or charts or anything previously that I have access to. I will use that to fill in that particular part, and I'll use this to spread and cast as wide a net as possible, while at the same time attempting to be as brief and general as possible. So this is one of the constraints of the bootstrap, is that enough material has to be iterated for the thing to get off the ground and start working. In other words, enough has been communicated to you that you can begin to utilize the feedback protocol by creating yourself some experiments to give it a try and see if you understand, and then check out your experience and compare it with the model and see where things may or may not line up and what they mean here or there. This is where, if you follow through, you will experience a series of dopamine hits, natural dopamine hits, coinciding with revelatory moments, moments called aha moments or eurekas. I'm just describing here one of the mechanisms which, especially once the coherence of membership has been reached, things tend to unfold very much in context that you are currently in. So there's no. It goes from needing so many externalized crutches to seeing very clearly some internal workings of some areas of behavior which enable you to just continually unfold that. And much of this has been already iterated in this dictation series. So I guess I'll keep buzzing for a little bit. The sky's beautiful. There's an airplane going overhead. Highway is busy as usual. Same with the road right in front of us. I'm on the 5th floor of the balcony out here, just working on my stuff that I do. Just doing my writing, experiencing life and experimenting with life. So enough has been granted through this speaking series already to reasonably expect that some people would be able to use this to bootstrap. Not everybody, but people who have already filled in a lot of the peripheral material which I haven't been able to get to yet, or which I may not be able to in this in this particular strike point domain. That's another one of the problems or constraints of the strike point is the fractal goes on and on and on, and it gets detailed, so detailed, and it's just not possible to, or it's easily possible to lose yourself in details and not form a coherent enough narrative for the arc to go across. So you do that by keep building a tunnel, a reality tunnel of information, which can be reasonably expected. Reasonably, this is an experiment. You believe so. This is what you're trying for, to allow for mimetic selection. So to allow for somebody to study this, what you're expressing, try the feedback. So build the model, do the participation, and then wait for insights and practice. So excuse me. So anyways, one of the context here is that, or I guess from my own history, I've been through a lot of my own experiences, a lot of chronic stress in my life, and this experience is what I'm basing my work of what I'm doing on, by remembering some of the things that I used to think, or the concerns that I had and still have, and how my approach to them has changed. I want to be able to, again, this is getting back to the introduction and the hook, to be able to articulate problems that people feel are relevant to their story, problems that people are having, in other words, so, and which they're aware of, and which they are trying to apply solutions. So people are discipling in various systems, you could say. Whenever somebody thinks they know something and go to teach it, it's a system. Whether they consciously know that or not, their mind has their neural OS. It's become a part of the neural OS and understood in such terms as certain things relating to other things and relating to other things, and certain processes having to be done in certain ways, or being done through time, and changing as they go. So I want to be relevant with this writing piece by interfacing with the narratives of people where they're at. So this is, when it comes to media expression, which is unidirectional or broadcast in nature, like this type of, at least this iteration piece, like we hybridize by sharing it to social media and have people talk to me and comment about this writing, but largely it's a one-way broadcast. So we have to perform a kind of statistical analysis as to who I think my audience is based on my history of interacting in the various media that I do. So in the introduction, in the hook, the list of dopamine hits, potential, however you want to say, just and really a courtesy to the reader to try and organize the writing in case they want to reference back to certain things or find certain parts. So I will be speaking in context. For example, some things like I'd like to mention certain topics in context of the history of sorcery of the spectacle. Just things that the community would know only and that outsiders really wouldn't. But that is the only thing that has to do with is my position in the web of relations. This is just my proximity, which I am navigating currently. So a lot of the problems that I describe will be, if I can, universal, and some of the things I would talk about in this dictation piece so some things an attempt at universality, and some things simply what situations of what's around me. And again, I want to make this as concise as possible and as relevant as possible. And I haven't written anything like this in about 2 years, as I mentioned earlier. At this point, when I feel like I have gained a lot of experiences, I really do feel a need to express yet again and again, and it's been a process of jumping and jumping, kind of getting more and more on the mark as I go through these kind of cycles. And I just want to express yet again well, how messed up the world is in its decayed states. We can see that this is a natural function of entropy, but the life force itself is negentropic. And being able to pay attention to all these aspects of one's being, which is what we iterate these in our work. This is as a bootstrapping material to allow you to have a model of something that when you look at the phenomena of your own experience, that you'll have something to bootstrap this feedback protocol with and start observing. And so as above, so below means that if you are not coherent, if you don't know anything about how anything works outside of your own little bubble or profession or a specialty, then the society that you build, the society of people like you with that attribute, with a extremely high specialization and an overly neglect of responsibilities, dealing with even self-management of the health of the body, nutrition, fitness, rest, hygiene. Focus on these. These are concerns which are missed, which are very often missed in society, and so we can't take care of ourselves. We can't take care of the inter ourselves, in between ourselves, the in between. So the sociological operating system, which emerges beyond a horizon of direct perceptibility. This is where this is the shared, happening in the shared layer of the neural OS. So it's really, it's not a cop-out to say, oh, you have to fix yourself first. It's, you know what, keep doing your stuff, whatever you think is great, but you have to develop yourself for that to become actually effective. It's not that you need to lose your ideals or your goals or anything, but in a more isomorphic context, you may frame that in a very different way, or be able to discuss things much more plainly with people, to perceive the interaction itself that's happening, and what kind of things need to happen to help come to understandings and convergences within the APS. So mimetic selection, in other words, assisted experience, like neurotechnologically augmented experience, however you want to say that. This is the Portal Mountain overlay. This is the model to be overlaid. You overlay this, test how it's working, and I mean it comes down to awareness and trust in the first place, even before you would ever start anything like this. So this is really where we went significantly with Portal Mountain, is in considering the interpersonal type infrastructure of teaching people how to relate, how to see the world more clearly, how to see the body. When you understand your context as a body, it doesn't mean you know what the body is. So this is where the bootstrapping material comes in handy. It's never per fiat authority, except yes, when it's a relationship between a member or a master to a participant, the participant can't yet tell if that material is isomorphic. They haven't run the experiments yet. So they would have to kind of trust the source that either one or more people seem to know what they're doing, and it seems like this is good for them and it's good for me and whatever. So you're convinced to a behavior change. This is a generic statement, and begin kind of training by accepting instructions and just doing it. And you must be doing the feedback observation. So if you simply take things as head knowledge and try to make this cosmos or cosmology, so you're constructing the web of constraints, maybe, or just carrying on doing that forever, but you're not allowing experimentation to come in, where you are actively setting up a given model and background foregrounding it between your lived experience of trying to perform what is being described in model terms, in protocol terms. So it's really like assisted or augmented experience network. Like this is, so what I'm describing here are part of the fundamental guilds. This is where the fundamentals come in. Just that when we are all doing certain behaviors, this allows for a coherent emergence of yet more holons above the layer of what we're doing. So a more coherent social holon. So it's kind of getting a bit cold outside right now. The sun has been down for about an hour. Still feeling okay. Aside from that, a bit chilly. I do have a sweater and a jacket on though, so it's okay. And So I'd like this to be a well-rounded document. So when I think long enough about what have I not talked about, there's going to become a point where I run out of ideas or things to say or directions to go. Again, at which point I will probably begin the transcribing process, which is going to take at least this long, so we're at like 5 hours. 5.5 maybe. I still feel like there's material waiting though. We haven't hit everything yet. I just wanted to quickly re-mention, I don't know if I did before, regarding kind of translating the model into protocols. So this is really where a lot of the core kernel of the operating system is being described in terms of protocol, simply by taking some of the core concepts of the model of what should be happening, and making protocols to kind of break down the parts and the bits and pieces of what are making all of this happen. All of what's described in the document artifacts. And I think I'm getting too tired for today to continue. It's getting dark out, it's cold. I feel like I've added a bit more, went into the deck protocol, which is great because this is how we're relating back to the AO, the work done on the AO with Anders and his crew out west. Shoutouts. Shoutouts would also go to the Alphabetica crew for helping us to get a better idea of the context regarding the chronology of spectacular civilization, the kind of the point of escape for the APS into externalized memory, into externalized systems, which in turn made systems out of us. So the environment speaking to us in symbolic code, telling us what to do. This has been kind of it going both ways. Anyways, that's a great context, great history there. Great focus on this cybernetic aspect, and concepts like computational propaganda. So just how mass behavior is controlled by this. And so this was the dawn of the Axial Age, and I think I spoke about the Great Axial War before. This is Alphabetica stuff, so we're linking that way. Another shout out to the Fatum crew, just regarding what I think is really cool work that's been under kind of investigation for decades, waiting for an implementation regarding the effects of intention on quantum systems, as well as technological augmentations to the neurological operating system, allowing for artificially spontaneous behavior, which is being influenced by the intention and the field of interaction between that and the quantum time sources, or the quantum randomness generator. Yeah, so I can see probably bridging this work into our constraint system, into the dashboard, as we call it. This is basically the manifestation of the sociological operating system. This is a technological augmentation. This is DEC protocol, but in a technological form over the internet. And I see a lot of potential in linking up these two projects to help with what they call despair meme, what we usually just call calcification of the abstract phase space. So this is the natural process whereby the neural network runs into begins to adopts patterns over time and eventually gets settled well into them, that it becomes very metastable and efficient, typically efficient, but inevitably falling short. In other words, conditions, the context, reality always changes. So we're actually at odds with life if we are under capture of the despair meme, which is related to depression, in that your potential, or your perception of what's possible in your field of potential is extremely narrowed down to a very, very small subset provided by the neurological operating system, operating on this heavily constrained APS. I shouldn't say heavily constrained, but heavily restricted or constricted APS, self-constricted and unaware of its own functions, and the kind of icebreaker that needs to go plow through every now and then, or even in some activities constantly. And this could mean like being fully present to an activity, where you're aside from the pre-programmed conditioning of the APS as much as possible within that domain. So of course you're functioning in all kinds of other ways, but you're opening up the potentiality in a certain domain. And I think that the Fatum project will be able to help out with this as a kind of ice-breaking method, not only within the local loopback proximity, confined more to the neurological operating system, but also in social contexts where we're connecting with each other for certain reasons, certain purposes. I could see like a system like Fatum helping to complete a feedback cycle between us and our relationships and our tasks and all of our things out there in the world, to help us to keep this intention field fresh and populated with good intention. So I could could see our work in the model in Portal Mountain as a constraining filter to constrain towards isomorphic results. For example, having you be guided or pointed to specific proximity guilds, or certain relationships or certain things that happen here or there, and I'm telling you to check this out or pay attention to this, or next time you do this thing, like really focus, whatever it is, or you could, like, I think it would be much better use in real time, I believe, as like a real time kind of scrying device over top of the dashboard, which is simply like kind of like, again, like an externalized copy of some of your internal processes, which you wish to take from internal memory and offload it externally, and then have set up different routines and reminders or whatever about this stuff. So yeah, I see a lot of potential there. What else? As far as people I want this to connect to, the Sorcery of the Spectacle subreddit. If you've been with us, since like I was here since 2,000 subscribers. I believe, I can't remember, I think it was 1,000 subscribers. I think we kind of lost it, because that's when we had to initiate emergency protocols, just to try and keep the sub kind of shocked and weirded out a bit, as we had already gone to the escape hatch in Telegram, where we could find each other in present states, as I was just describing, without getting so flooded out or drowned out the signal by the noise. So anyways, this project, like what we're working on is what it's always been, like with the Spark, and like with a bunch of like a ragtag crew of mutants who are just like can't stay still, can't get stuck on this subreddit. We can't get stuck into this little niche or whatever, wherever it is in life. It's like this the icebreaker on overdrive. So we tried to keep people up to date with what's going on, but it became increasingly more and more bizarre and esoteric, and just we had to go like basically sell out to SOTS Corp, just to get even like really access to the kind of things that we needed to. So again, the subreddit's been a challenge, an ongoing challenge since about 1,000 subs, where things just went kind of still bouts of really good stuff, but a lot of our work and our collaboration just went over to Telegram. So that's the SOTS is just like a beachhead where like stranded raft faring hooligans off board in search of some kind of refuge after being lost at sea for how many years. So the subreddit has been a challenge to keep up with it, but I'm really thankful that we do have this community, and that's kind of our origin. And we know that like a lot of what we're working on still can easily find fertile ground in the sub. Just a lot of us still like check out SOTS subreddit often. So I've been very impressed on many occasions with the quality. It comes in surges usually. Currently, as I speak, it's been ongoing for over a month or two. Really good quality. I don't know, some maybe this kind of like collective mania we get sometimes. We just start freaking out, and shit happens, and it's like all kinds of spooky action, and just everything converging, and before you know it, we're like, we blasted through another layer, and like here we are. But it's usually just like the crew on Telegram, you know, like that we know about it, that we can discuss it. There's not the discussion happening on the sub. So it's been like that for a long time. But much love to Sots, to all you Sots. Yeah, so who else is this intended to be relevant for? I mean, it might be a little probably too complex, too involved, unless I get into some of the aspects of church life and small groups, and how this is reflected or reflective of the guild. And I think that's probably a must-have for this, just to get in, to go over some of my progress with the various small groups that I've interacted with. In model speak, it's simply a proximity guild, or a collection of proximity guilds. But yeah, I've been pursuing some very intentional relationships, to be working in this kind of research and development. So if that's the case, then I mean, shout out to my my Christian buddies. I guess it'll be coming later. I don't think I've talked much about the actual establishment of proximity guilds, and like, and establishing protocols, and kind of feeling out accepted behaviors, and like making like a constitution of your group, whether unspoken or spoken or written, even better spoken than not spoken. So yeah, we'll get into that stuff. I'm really thankful for my church family, and I've found many people who are definitely willing to have difficult relationships, and in other words, ones involving discipleship, where it's like you're witnessing to others, you're witnessing their behavior and trying to lift each other up towards isomorphism, towards godliness, to become Christ-like. So that also gives another context for this whole work. The church is sick, as sick as society is, but at least you find some people here trying, and that's all we need, is a few gathered in His name, and He is there with us. So I'm just very grateful to have people who are willing to open their hearts and even entertain some of my guidance and direction. One of our small groups is about 13 people. It's a men's group that I attend. We're doing a lot more R&D there. Another one is in a private house. So the first one is at Tim Hortons, another private house of usually about 8 or 10 people, maybe. Kind of older people, you could say. So immediately there are some challenges there, again, with the whole despair meme and the icebreaker protocol, trying to figure out how to implement that. And it seems to come down to what I may describe or get into later as shamanism, as opposed to priesthood. I mean, in the sense that a good priest is a shaman, but a shaman isn't necessarily a priest, isn't necessarily representing that sort of authority or hierarchy, like an earthly hierarchy, earthly church. You know, like I found that's a good distinction between earthly and heavenly churches. The heavenly church is relationships in Christ. The earthly church is, of course, the usual identity politics and all kinds of crazy stuff that just comes out as a fact of being a living being, alive, and interacting with people and having needs, and all that kind of stuff. So heaven has to meet earth. That's where the good fruit comes from. Earth has to meet heaven. We've talked about that dichotomy kind of recently too. It's tricky. Could get into that later. I'll make a note. So another is I'm helping to run Alpha. It's a program called Alpha where people get together every week for a 10-week program, or it's customizable to however long you want, to have dinner, watch a Christian video, and then do a spiritual discussion. Very lightly moderated, very lightly guided, just enough to keep things kind of healthy kind of thing, and prompting to get into this kind of spiritual discussion. So it's been very good. This is my 3rd year. And we have usually about maybe 30 people there, maybe a bit more sometimes. And that's really good. A really good format, a really good program, a really good method. I'd like to find parallels to what I've found in church life. I'd like to look to develop parallels within the context of the guild. In other words, to kind of give ideas of protocols which really help community get together and facilitate community. I could see like an alpha type program being created for Portal Mountain. I've thought about the format, like it would be translatable in so many different ways, but one of the potential formats would be as a instead of an escape room where you try to get out of somewhere, it would be like an entrance room, a get-in room. So you're trying to get in. Anybody's welcome, but it's like an academic style. And this could be a building or room of any size, as long as you can have multiple compartments, ideally at least 3. It sounds very sparse and probably just killed the whole feeling of the idea, but an escape room, you go through many different puzzles and many things, many areas. An entry room could be, or a portal entry room is a stationary or fixed physical location, which tries to help coordinate coherence or cultivate coherence and facilitate portal entry. So in some ways that would seem like a church or a dojo or an academy. Same thing we have for so Portal Mountain in its current iteration or its current context is a Telegram network, a network of chat rooms, right? So you can only be invited to certain ones. So only certain ones are open to the public, and we're using this as a development ground for other manifestations, such as in physical, or any different, so many different ways. Like what this is an implementation of a facilitation of the meta religion or the meta organization, in which you can go into so many already pre-existing contexts and start speaking like a universal translator, even between different religions or different ideas, just to try and link up the experience and help things to become relevant for people by speaking into their life and into their experience. That's how you make things real for them. And the meta organization or the meta narrative, I'm just describing the same thing. It assists in this unhindered approach, which is, in other words, boundless from any one particular symbol set. We do need one, so we've created our own meaning, our own web of meaning context, and put together this kind of Frankenstein monster, as we have called it, which is source coming from so many different sources, just putting together what we need to do to get what we need to do done. And so we have virtual manifestations, we have physical manifestations, and we also have, I guess you would say, fundamental manifestations. And this is the people, you and I, people ourselves, internalizing the model, internalizing an isomorphic model. So this can be done by taking your existing symbol set, and comparing it. So doing the foreground background meme. Comparing it to the model, comparing the model to your lived experience and how you've sorted it out, and try and look for similarities, try and match some things up. In other words, orient yourself. You need at least one kind of anchor to know that even this body of information will make any sense at all, and then extend it into areas where you may be uncertain, or you'd like some extra insight about a certain aspect of spirituality or whatever it is. And this is how it works in general. Aspect of any area of behavior, any skill. And you simply try to learn from the model. So you're hyper accelerating your own learning process by bootstrapping the process itself with high quality bootstrapping material. That is what this whole dictation speech is all about, is high quality bootstrapping material. To get an idea, a sense, and then to be able to move it into your own world, into your own context, into the things that you need, what makes sense for you. So develop in your own direction if it hasn't been already, and then share and help others to converge with your findings, right? And then when they do the experiment, they find some things they've improved on their end, and some things they've now improved of your model. So they share it back with you. This is the dynamo, the engine of the content and material of the dashboard. Is this unfolding wave of causality, which is enabled by the isomorphic kernel in these neural and sociological operating systems. So I'm simply trying to go into as many different facets as possible to become potentially relevant and link up and bridge up with as many people as possible with this expression that I'm currently making. I'd also like to definitely revisit the issues of trauma onto. You could see it's imprinting on this, imprinting the despair meme onto the APS, onto the abstract phase space. So your perceptions of reality are being shrunken down into a little tiny corner of your potential life, and this is depression without you even knowing it. So we get traumatized, and then our behavior becomes restricted and constricted because we don't want that pain ever again. We don't want to hurt whatever happened. We don't want it ever to happen again. So we create these associations of the things that happened in that context. So we try to learn from our behavior, and this is a natural survival mechanism. that imprint of that trauma, it just surges out into the web of meaning which is currently running. The context, the situation that you're in, that dread, just, or whatever it is, fills the whole space, and suddenly everything becomes tainted. Everything that you're in and everything that you're doing, the context, the object, the actions, whatever it is, becomes tainted with this trauma. And then whenever in the future you come to encounter that area of reality, in whatever piece of it is, like maybe it could be a sports injury, and now you're afraid of anybody hitting a ball with a bat or something, or you're afraid of anybody doing something like sending a puck flying or whatever. You automatically recoil. You involuntarily curl up your body. So these kinds of traumas become embedded and lodged in our APS and in our body. So the body has a response to this, and it ends up constricting muscles and tightening up and creating a lot of tension throughout the body in various muscles, depending on what type of trauma you've had. You can find a lot of this mapped out, which is really fascinating, because you can use trigger point therapies and other breathing therapies there's other great trauma release type therapies that you can try to release these patterns and come back towards pure potentiality. So to do this in a healthy way, you have to realize that yes, your body has told you something. Your body has told you that this better not ever happen again. So rather than just allowing it to be a natural instinctual response of blocking off, of becoming traumatized and blocking off parts of your reality and then becoming depressed, instead of doing that, in order to do it in a balanced way, we need to revisit and reprocess these, and intellectually also take care of this, and make sure that we've properly addressed it, and furthermore that we've integrated this into our reality of things which are possible. This is part of the possible. We can't deny it. We have to figure out how to live life in the presence of catastrophe, of near danger, near death around any corner. The pure potentiality is mostly towards death. The path of life is narrow. So we can't simply open up pure potentiality again and be naive like a child. So we do, as a course, as a matter of course of our life and our experience, we do have to learn from our traumas, and we have to learn how to accept what happens, like learn how to have a healthy relationship with the universe, with the world, with your life, that you can't control everything, and really what you have the most control of is your own inner experience. This is your own calm in the storm. And so trauma is an incredibly powerful and important subject when dealing with potentiality, and when dealing with a crusty APS. You'll almost always find trauma to be the cause behind why we have limited our sense of what is possible. So this is really important when it comes to relationships as well, because we have certainly been traumatized against interacting with each other, because we in the decayed state of relationships, there's no love is not manifest. Like unconditional love is not being manifest in decayed states, and if it is, it's fleeting, and it gets insulted and quashed and snuffed out eventually it gets, this is the process through childhood of who you are getting beaten out of you. So overall, and the way the technology has been shaping us to become so individualized and disconnected, technologically there's a major reinforcement feedback loop and loops going on, which push us away from each other. So if we want something like the guild to take off, or if we want to revive the church, however you want to say it, we need to deal with how we have been traumatized and how we all shy away from each other. Like, this is just yet another facet, but this is another one of the kind of angles that I had to research and look into heavily, and to practice, to do a lot of practice towards even opening my own self, that I feel comfortable speaking to people and making friends, or just being present with somebody, even welcoming a so-called awkward silence. Just make you smile more. Like, do something weird. Who cares? There are many protocols and techniques, but it comes down to practice, and it comes down to healing, and just allowing the healing to happen, being present with your pain and with your traumas, trying to figure them out, be with them, don't quash them out, don't drink them away, don't smoke them away, process your trauma, and these are incredibly important protocols for the healing of society. Like, it's not that just some technological savior is going to fix all of this. whatever we as the guild make to communicate amongst each other has to work equally as well in the oral tradition, using internalized memory, as equally well there as it does, or I should have said it the other way around, as it does externally in our technological augmentation. This is the meaning of how it should be isomorphic. You should not lose anything when you externalize. This is the great care that has to be taken, and the onus and the burden is on he who is interpreting. It is on you who is listening. And now I'm smiling really big because of the awkward silence. So how we relate to each other, this is the cornerstone block of the Proximity Guild, is relations. So if we are habituated and traumatized into this helpless dynamic with the state, which does everything for us, if we get money for it, if we work for money and give it to the various facets of the state, then its agents will provide us with our needs. Nature and society, civilization didn't always work like that. You couldn't be broken off into this pure potentiality where just anything goes. Like, as long as you have a job and maintain that, you can pay people to do everything else, and your whole life doesn't matter what you do with it. You can do whatever you want with it. There is a massive danger to this, and there's a massive responsibility to this. When it comes to this point, you've already lost the responsibility. when we are at the point where the only thing we need to know how to do is one single job, then we have nothing, we have no reason to be with anyone else in any kind of non-monetary relationship. There's simply no reason. I mean, except to have at the most generic commodity of a friend. A friend does this for you, a friend does that for you. And while you do it for them because you don't want to have to just pay each other to do it, but then you build all these expectations, and people don't just chill out with each other. They don't just enjoy each other's company, but there's things to do. You have to do this and this. And, well, of course it makes sense that there are very basic responsibilities, even as relating with other people, of having a friendship. Like, for example, having a shower and being hygienic. If you smell too bad, no one will be around you. That's sad but true. And so there are basic minimum responsibilities even in life, modern life, which most people need. But we have been pushed into a corner where we basically don't have to do anything. And I mean, if you make enough money doing what you're doing, you can pay anybody to do pretty much anything. Because if they don't, they're on the street or whatever, right? Modern day slavery. This is a way to look, and an example to look at, to see the work of the enemy, the work of the devil, at play, utilizing systems like the monetary system, and having people treat each other like objects without even realizing it, and thinking this is just normal how society should work. You should get paid for your work because you deserve it, and that's how you're going to live. But this is all totally
conditional, and it's out of our ignorance that we don't even know that we actually have the ability to very efficiently take care of ourselves and of each other. But all of our efforts are being siphoned off through obfuscations of payment, through not being paid what we're really worth, even to the market. And there's varying degrees of that too. Like, you have some really good businesses and whatever, and co-ops, and there's all kinds of different stuff out there. So we need to learn how to relate to each other, how to have recurring meetings, to meet up recurrently with intention to disciple, intention to intentionally get better, to make our lives better, to speak into each other's lives. There has to be time for this. This is why there was always the church, but now things have obviously gone different, and yet still if we throw away what we got in the past out of religion, if we throw that away and think that we don't need it anymore, we can logically expect that there will be a void, which is going to be filled somehow. So we should be looking for that, looking for those sort of crutches that we're putting in place to hold certain things together. Like the potential for cooperation is much greater than competition. I'm not making an argument that we shouldn't have competition. I'm not making any kind of giant, grandiose, ideological arguments about the way that society should be. All I'm doing is claiming that it is very ordered how our neurological operating system functions to present us with our experience of perception of consciousness. This is in a very orderly manner. We can model it. We can model the process of skill, of getting better at things. We can model this process of teaching each other skills and of sharing behavior. We can model the process of sharing behavior. That is what we are doing. at the core of the operating system, we have protocols which enable the modeling and sharing of behavior in its most generic sense. From then on, when we go to actually utilize this dashboard system, as well as what we are bootstrapping right now is the content, but the content itself will spread out along the fractal into all different ways of society, all different facets and niches, which I haven't been able to go into yet, and which will be beyond the threshold of what I can reasonably accomplish in this one single strike point. So at some point I'll probably also give examples of protocol iterations. So maybe I might call this a protocol strike point because it's a protocol which is being iterated and through which an arc is being formed. So like I will get into an example of swimming protocols. And I guess swimming concepts. Like in that, I want to get into evoking the feedback protocol to be noticing your swimming as you swim, and in this moment of noticing, kind of relax your body into a feeling out of a new way of swimming. So this is also a really good example of how we can see how very easily our actions become mechanical. I think swimming is a sort of a very unnatural feeling of behavior to us, and so we tend to do it strictly on instruction and of what we've been told. So we'll take a model and we'll kind of try it, and we'll just stick with that model. So in swimming, we can often see this effect where the material, which is supposed to be merely bootstrapping material, has ended up becoming just a crust of subroutine, which merely allows you to swim. It's not that you are becoming better at swimming or that you are doing feedback on your swimming and improving and really experiencing and feeling the swimming and the motion of the different parts of your body and how it affects your speed and the feeling and the mechanics of your joints, and how swimming can be more relaxing or whatever and less strenuous on joints, which it is, I think, a great exercise, by the way. Good for cardio and upper or muscle strength. So that'll be one kind of protocol strike point will be for swimming. And another one will be for, which is a bit more interesting, this will probably come next then, which will be jamming. So the creation of music in cooperation with others in real time. So I'd like to iterate a whole bunch of protocols which can enable that behavior to happen. So we'll see kind of two levels of protocols perhaps. So some which are more for the proximity guild, I guess you could say. So this is your own skill and your own ability to play with yourself. So you're gonna run up many proximity guilds through time, or you could call it the same proximity guild, different iterations or instances of the proximity guild in which you yourself with your guitar or with your instrument partake in a practicing session. So this is a kind of relationship with yourself that will develop skills necessary skills to be able to play an instrument, which is obviously going to be necessary for more social or the more social protocols
So not just a loopback proximity guild, not just a loopback with yourself, but actual, what do we call them? Association guild. So an association proximity guild. So that's where you are. So something is emerging out of the cooperation and the sort of harmonic resonance, or what we call the isomorphism of the behaviors through time. So we are hearing a music that sounds good. This is another good thing about using music as an example, is that it's sort of a really neat way of I can't say visualizing truth, but of audializing truth. So your ears are picking up and automatically telling you, true or false, does this sound good? Or does it sound harmonious at least? Maybe not to taste, but do you recognize this as a pattern, as a coherent pattern? And so there's a lot of interesting facets to using music as an example domain for a protocol strike point. So it seems like there's at least one more recording session. This has been the second day of recording now. I'm outside and it's dark again, so I can't really tell what time it is or how long I've been recording in this last instance. I was sitting, now I'm kind of standing and pacing a little bit. It definitely helps me to keep talking. I think I might be running out of steam, but I probably need to do some stretching exercises and just relax my mind. And probably give it a rest for a day, let tomorrow be a new day. And yeah, I'm just going to wait here to see if any more notes come up. So I'm just thinking through my mind about the guild and what it looks like and what people think it looks like and what people think the guild is, and what people think the church is, and how the church is such a triggering word, and how we have been so hypocritical, and how people hate hypocrisy. And so getting into all this religion stuff, I'm just trying to give a context for the perception of the work that we're doing, of which I am describing in this current strike point. The bootstrapping the bootstrapper strike point. I just want people to envision the ability to connect with your neighbor and to connect with people around you and to have more meaningful relationships, and to be able to keep better track of your own life and be able to share with others how to best do the different behaviors that you do. So this is like think about like flocking of culture, flocking of behavior. So intentional mimetic selection on a societal scale, using an infrastructure which is isomorphic as much as possible, always going towards this. So the AO program is going to be, or the dashboard, or could be one and the same. This is going to be running on the Scepter platform. So for now, like an intermediary, what this might be is as like I believe what they call a Holo app. So that's running on the Holo network, which is a distributed computing platform intended as a sort of gateway, for the traditional World Wide Web and other services to interface with a kind of enclosed or safeguarded
gated, whatever, I don't know what you call it, network of people who I believe they're running it off like a crypto coin type economy. So people get paid for, or potentially paid for hosting this hollow chain data in a way that becomes accessible through the gateway, through the hollow gateway, to the World Wide Web. So, in other words, an interface between what people normally access the internet right now and this hollow chain infrastructure. So this is a stopgap measure before what happens is that devices themselves begin running hollow chain, and instead of hosting or having a profile on a server, which you may be accessing, or instead of going into this, I believe you can get connected into that network freely. I don't know. I guess you just need hollow coins or a wallet to make a wallet and some computing power. So the end goal of that stopgap measure, the hollow network, or the hollow whatever distributed computing network, when holochain and Scepter are running on individual devices, they will be able to sign these transactions. So in other words, to make a very complex social interaction within the context of a web of trust. So cryptographic security and chains of custody of data or whatever, like chains of signatures. Like you can do all kinds of complicated things in an offline mode. So here's the key and the difference between holochain and traditional blockchain is that blockchain is a distributed centralized ledger, which, or I should just say distributed, whatever, but what I mean by centralized is that it's data centric. So the data, there's like a virtual centralization of the data. So the databases, everyone has the database. Everyone has the same database. You all are only concerned with what does the official ledger say of how much Bitcoin I have in my wallet. Right? So holochain is agent centric. So this means that the data is held at the agent. The agent has its own unique perspective on the data. So when somebody signs a promise to you, you have it on your device. You know that they use their signature in the web of trust to give you a note or to sign something for you or whatever. It's with you. And the unenclosability aspect of this means that nobody can take that from you. Like you have a signature. It's on your device. It was an offline transaction which increased your and their holochain in a I don't know if it's three-way transaction or whatever. But you essentially sign off on this activity on both ends, and at that point it's virtually proof. And in fact, often to protect yourself, if you made an important transaction, you would simply send out that data to some of your friends so that they also have proof of this this change in whatever happened, whatever trust was used to say something or to do something. And there's all kinds of apps. Any app that we think of in our current situation is going to be running on this type of a platform. This is where stuff like Uber continually fails, like where they keep trying to build these platform businesses to be the intermediator between everybody. These businesses are the last grasp of the state to hold on and to try and keep mediating and profiting from our intermediation, from our helplessness. So what you have is something like Uber or Airbnb, where people are freely exchanging or trading or renting out their time or their equipment, their car, their house. They're allowing through an agreement a rental of that to each other. So they're actually the overhead for the business for Airbnb or Uber, for examples. Their overhead is very small. They hardly have to do jack squat. Their only purpose there is to put some false sense of security over the network, as if well, it's a corporation running it, so they are accountable. If this person screws me over, there's maybe some kind of insurance or whatever that Uber or Airbnb or whatever they have, maybe. Probably they tried to get their lawyers to avoid everything like that possible, and we would find that in most cases that nothing can be done about abuses of the system. So this is trusting a corporation who doesn't care about anything except by its own laws, except profit. And we can't expect the same level of potential as we could when what happens when we just relate directly to each other. So in our networks in knowing people and really sharing services. And so this is where the dashboard comes in, because so like things like Uber and Airbnb, these would have an app. These would just be apps. And instead of trusting the corporate network, you trust the web of trust. So you trust that somebody has signed and made an agreement, and within only a couple degrees of separation, you know this person. Like it could be someone even from states away or even another country. And how many 6 degrees of separation? Probably. Like with the level and power of computation that we have on the planet right now, giving access or allowing information. I mean, I think you get into malicious problems with sharing your web of trust. Potentially, these would have to be mitigated. So, but either way, in such a scheme where you would have, like you probably, I guess, in a global distributed or global trust network, you probably would have concentration points of trust, which don't mind brokering and facilitating such trust arrangements if it's possible or feasible, like such as having an international student come over to stay at your place. Because you trust your government's educational departments or whatever, which is getting in touch with their foreign ministries to arrange this interaction. So then, I mean, you would have potentially these gateways between the different types of trust, so network and hierarchical trust, and bridges going between them like that, potentially. But the idea is to put most of these trusts in your network, and to develop your network, and to develop your own skills, and to be able to easily share in all these multitude of apps which will come out, or views of the dashboard. So it's just like customize a view of the dashboard and start using it, and other people will use it too. And then before you know it, your industry has its own dashboard, where you can go to connect up with other people who are going to teach you how to do it, who are interested in teaching, give you access to the marketplace, like based on who you know in your web of trust. It's not like a centralized market. This would be like, we all have needs and we all have skills. So my needs, I will broadcast them out, and people with skills, they will potentially receive these broadcasts and try and ask, and hey, do you know this person? Do you know this person? Can you introduce me? I'd like to offer my services, or whatever. Just work together. Like So the point is that to have a completely different view and a vision of how the network operates and functions, while disintermediating these third parties who don't belong there. So it's always a very different paradigm when you're trying to think of how to interact in terms in a stateless form. So yeah, state arises, yes, but so being in touch with the stateless form as well. So that just gives you interaction with your proximity, with people around you, whoever's there. Your people are your people, they're right there. Loud bikes. They're my people too, it's fine. And I think I'm done for tonight because Honey's coming out to say something. Hey.
You're gonna freeze?
Yeah, almost. Yeah, so it's been probably another 2 hours today. My back is getting sore, so I'm gonna call it a night. Go stretch out, do some exercises, and let's get ready for bed. Cheers.